Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in to the news update for day 357 on the war in Ukraine. You are listening to The Account. Today we start with a fake news warning. After, I have a very quick update on the second day of the Ramstein-style meeting. The rest of the updates are grouped into the usual: situation inside Ukraine, including an interview with Reznikov, the occupied territories, Russia and Belarus, with an intelligence analysis by Andrii Yusov, and British claims that Russia lost half of its modern T-72 tanks and 97% of its army is currently in Ukraine, and the international developments, containing several updates on aid to Ukraine. Before we start the report, though, a quick fake news warning. Photos of a fake announcement allegedly hung inside an office of the German Ministry of Defense have been shared today by Russian channels. The announcement reads in German, "Dear interns from Ukraine, in Germany, showing a Nazi swastika or other symbols associated with fascism, such as SS insignia, is punishable by imprisonment of up to 3 years or a big fine. However, Ukrainian soldiers are trained at the Armored Corps Training Center in Münster, and the nearest Ministry of Defense office is over 300 kilometers away." And now to start the report, a quick look at the flashpoints along the front. Kremina. Not much to report here today. Russia is making incremental progress northwest of Kremina, but Ukraine managed to defend the southern forest area. Bakhmut. It seems Krasnahora is still partially under Ukrainian control. This was claimed by a Ukrainian commander with the call sign Malyar. In the south, Ukraine managed to gain breathing space by pushing back Russian forces from the T-0504 highway marked here with a dotted line. Constant battles are taking place in the eastern and southern outskirts of Bakhmut. So far, Ukraine is holding off any Russian advances. President Zelensky said that Bakhmut is still alive. It is a living wall consisting of people. They are protecting the city, understanding that their sacrifice allows Ukraine to get ready for the liberation of all its territories. To start the news segment, a very quick update on the Ramstein-style meeting. There was not much information available about the second day of the Ramstein-style meeting. However, today during the second day of the meeting, the Ukraine Defense Contact Group discussed the supply of tanks to the armed forces of Ukraine. And now a look at all the minor news out of Ukraine. The Deputy Minister of Defense, Hanna Malyar, stated today that the situation at the front is difficult for Ukraine due to the kind of war Russia is waging. However, she continued, in some assault units, the Wagner PMC suffered around 80% losses of personnel. This is due to the fact that Russian commanders are intensively using so-called suicide squads, and the evacuation of killed and wounded Russian servicemen is limited or not even carried out. In an interview with Ukrinform, Defense Minister Reznikov stated that the armed forces of Ukraine have enough ammunition to repel the Russian offensive. He further said that the armed forces of Ukraine will be fully ready for an offensive on Western equipment in a few months, since Ukraine will need this time to fully prepare for liberation of the temporarily occupied territories. 6 Russian balloons carrying reflectors and reconnaissance equipment were spotted and shot down over the city of Kyiv today. Andrii Yusov, representative of the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine, said during an interview that Ukrainian intelligence is working together with people close to Russian President Vladimir Putin. Reznikov, Ukraine's Minister of Defense, said that President Volodymyr Zelensky asked him to remain in office after the recent corruption scandal in the ministry. Late in the evening today, Serhiy Lysak, head of the Dnipropetrovsk Oblast military administration, warned of incoming Shahed drones in the oblast. Next up, the latest regarding the situation in the occupied territories. The General Staff of Ukraine reported today that in the village of Krasna Zorka, located in Crimea, a local crematorium is cremating dead soldiers around the clock. This is how the Russians are trying to hide their losses. There is a constant line of up to 10 military trucks near the local crematorium. The occupiers use these trucks to bring dead Russian servicemen and mercenaries, the report states. A new burial site of people who might have died while serving as mercenaries in the Russian Wagner PMC has been found near the occupied city of Luhansk. According to Petro Andriuschenko, advisor to the mayor of Mariupol, citizens still have to queue for hours in order to get warm food. Moving on to the news updates from Russia and Belarus. Andrii Yusov, representative of the Chief Intelligence of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, stated today that Russia's strategy of attacking Bakhmut and Vuhledar in Donetsk Oblast aims to delay Ukraine's counteroffensive. The Russian command is in a hurry to launch attacks as they are aware of an imminent counteroffensive. He further said that Russia is currently suffering the largest losses since the beginning of the war. Ramzan Kadyrov, head of the Chechen Republic, has openly criticized Russian officials who reveal information on Russian losses. According to Kadyrov, losses are inevitable during combat missions and there is no need to write about how many have been killed. Russian news outlet RIA Novosti wrote on Telegram that Vitalii Hanchev, the collaborator Russia installed as head of occupied Kharkiv Oblast, announced that Russia will systematically recapture all settlements that were liberated by Ukraine. According to the report, the Military Balance 2023, published today by the British International Institute for Strategic Studies, about half of the Russian fleet of T-72B and T-72B3M tanks have been destroyed in Ukraine. The UK Defence Secretary Ben Wallace has stated that the UK estimates that 97% of the entire Russian army is currently in Ukraine. Russian media outlet Verska reported that Russian military commissariats, together with the management of educational institutions, force students to sign consent for early conscription. This will make it possible to conscript young people in April instead of doing so in summer when they will finish their studies. More and more Russian conscripts who have been sent to the war in Ukraine are coming forward with requests to serve only far away from the front line. Journalists have made a video compilation of different conscripts from Russia's Orenburg Oblast and from Irkutsk, Kaliningrad and Tatarstan. According to the Conflict Observatory report from Yale University's Humanitarian Research Lab, a network of camps for re-education and adoption of Ukrainian children is operating in Russia and temporarily occupied Crimea. And to wrap up the news segment, the international developments. The Army of the United States has announced that it has awarded 2 companies an order for the production of 155mm artillery ammunition worth $522 million for Ukrainian aid. Ukraine will receive equipment including tank spares, uncrewed air systems, electronic warfare and air defense from the first package of a multi-million-pound funding from the International Fund for Ukraine. The German Vice-Chancellor and Federal Minister of Economy, Robert Habeck, criticized the terms of delivery of German Leopard tanks to Ukraine. Having made the decision to supply Leopard 1 and Leopard 2 tanks, we are doing everything we can at this moment, said Habeck. It was a little late, but at least it is happening now. The Netherlands will supply Ukraine with 20,000 ammunition for Leopard 2 main battle tanks. This was stated by the Minister of Defense of the country, Kajsa Ollongren. Germany has quite enough shell stockpiles for the Gepard self-propelled anti-aircraft system that are currently being used in Ukraine. Boris Pistorius, the Minister of Defense of Germany, stated that shell stocks may be enough until summer. Western allies will not be able to supply Ukraine with 2 full battalions of Leopard 2 tanks as they previously promised, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said. Only Germany and Portugal promised to send the A6 version of Leopard 2 battle tanks, with 14 pledged by Berlin and 3 by the Portuguese government. Friedrich Merz, leader of the German Christian Democratic Union, thinks it is possible that Germany will supply fighter jets to Ukraine in the future. According to NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg, right now the priority is to help Ukraine achieve victory in the war. Ukraine's NATO membership is only a secondary concern. Sweden received a request from Ukraine to transfer Gripen fighter aircraft, and it is being considered, Swedish Defense Minister Paul Jonsson said today. But these aircraft are very important for Sweden's defense. And now for the intelligence report segment, starting as usual with the UK Ministry of Defense. On February 9, 2023, Deputy Security Council Chairman Dmitry Medvedev called for an increase in Russian tank production while visiting the Omsk transport machine construction plant. This follows several public comments by President Putin urging the defense industry to better support the special military operation. In a televised meeting on January 12, 2023, Putin castigated Denis Manturov, the Deputy Prime Minister with responsibility for the defense industry, for fooling around. One of the president's strongest public outbursts since the invasion. Senior Russian leaders are likely aware that the state's military-industrial output is becoming a critical weakness, exacerbated by the strategic and operational miscalculation of invading Ukraine. Production is almost certainly falling short of the Russian Ministry of Defense demands to resource the Ukraine campaign and restore its longer-term defense requirements. A look at the latest assessment by the Institute for the Study of War. The analysts believe that the defense of Bakhmut is a strategically sound move. According to them, Western news about Ukraine's determination to defend Bakhmut no matter what is worrying allies. The Washington Post, for example, reported that the Americans believe that Ukraine will not be able to defend the city and launch a counteroffensive at the same time. The Institute, however, emphasizes that Ukraine's decision to make a stand in Bakhmut is probably a strategically sound move despite its costs. On the topic of the Russian Ministry of Defense starting to recruit convicts, the researchers stated the following. The Russian Ministry of Defense is reportedly recruiting convicts and mimicking the Wagner Group's treatment of convicts as cannon fodder. The Russian MOD's decision to recruit prisoners is an indicator that the Kremlin seeks to exploit convicts for future human wave attacks in a similar fashion as the Wagner PMC, despite the convicts' limited combat effectiveness. The Russian MOD's recruitment of prisoners in fall 2022 may also coincide with intensifying criticism from Yevgeny Prigozhin, head of the Wagner PMC. And to wrap up the report, the evening update by the General Staff of Ukraine. The enemy, despite significant losses, does not give up his intentions to reach the administrative borders of Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts, for which he continues to focus his main efforts on conducting offensive actions in the Kupiansk, Liman, Bakhmut, Avdiivka and Shakhtarsk directions. In Starobilsk, Luhansk Oblast, on the territory of the surgical corps of the local hospital, the occupiers opened a military hospital for the treatment of seriously wounded Russian servicemen. The surgical building is completely closed for civilian use. As of February 11th, the arrival of about 20 military trucks with wounded Russians was noted. In Novakhovka, Kherson Oblast, the occupiers are searching private estates of the local population with the aim of seizing swimming equipment, which are then used to carry out sabotage actions and provocations. And that wraps up today's news report. If you're interested in any of the articles, you can find links to them in the description as always. If you enjoyed the report and found it informative, please consider sharing it with others. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day. You were listening to The Account. Slava Ukraini.